Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into Psalms 131 through 140 today.
Really excited to explore these.
Yeah, they offer like this incredible guide for navigating life,
Mhm.
with humility, unity, worship, and unwavering faith.
So much wisdom packed into these ancient verses.
And, they were originally songs and poems.
Oh, wow.
So just imagine like the raw emotion woven into these powerful words.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how even centuries later, these psalms, they still resonate so deeply with us.
For
They
sure.
really tap into those universal human experiences,
Yeah.
like reminding us that we're not alone in our struggles or anxieties or, our search for meaning.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's kick things off with Psalm 131.
Okay.
It uses this incredibly vivid image of a weaned child resting in its mother's arms.
Hmm.
What jumps out at you about that? And how does it connect to the idea of surrender?
Well, that image, I mean, speaks volumes, doesn't it? It's not just about peace. It's
Yes.
about utter dependence and trust. The psalmist is saying, "My heart is not proud. My eyes are not haughty. I've quieted my soul."
It's powerful.
It is. Think about a time you felt completely overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
This song reminds us that sometimes the most powerful action is surrender. Not giving up,
Right?
but letting go of the need to control everything and finding comfort in something larger than ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that leads us right into Psalm 132, which centers around King David's desire to build a temple for God.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just construction, right?
Right.
It's about creating this dwelling place for the divine.
Yeah.
But how do we, in our modern lives, make space for something like that?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The temple wasn't just bricks and mortar, right?
Right.
It represented this order amidst chaos.
Okay.
It was a sacred space where people could connect with something bigger than themselves.
I see.
So how can you create that kind of sacred space in your own life? Maybe it's a morning routine, a creative outlet, or even a dedicated place for prayer. Just a space, carved out intentionally for reflection and connection.
I love that idea. And then there's verse 11. The Lord has sworn in truth to David, he will not turn from it.
Right.
It speaks to the enduring nature of God's promises,
It does.
which is incredibly comforting.
Absolutely. These promises are not fleeting.
Yeah.
They're anchored in something unchanging and unwavering.
Right.
It's a solid foundation to build upon.
Okay, solid foundation. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about unity with Psalm 133.
Okay, yeah.
It begins, Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity.
Mm-hmm.
There's something so powerful about that sense of togetherness, isn't there?
Absolutely. It really captures that feeling of everything, clicking into place,
Yeah.
harmony, understanding, shared purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the song uses this beautiful analogy comparing unity to the dew of Hermon.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
The dew of Hermon is known for its refreshing and life-giving properties.
Okay.
Just as that dew nourishes the land, unity invigorates and sustains communities. It's not just about getting along.
Right.
It's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive.
I like that. So if we think about our own lives,
Yeah.
what does it look like to actively cultivate that kind of unity in our families, workplaces, and communities?
I think it takes conscious effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's about choosing understanding over judgment, extending compassion rather than criticism, and embracing forgiveness instead of holding on to resentment.
Yeah.
It's a choice we make every day.
And sometimes that choice is challenging, especially when we're faced with differing opinions or challenging personalities.
Oh, for sure.
But that's the real work, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's where Psalm 134 comes in.
Okay.
It's a short but powerful call to worship. Lift up your hands in the sanctuary and bless the Lord. It's a simple act with profound implications.
That image of lifting hands is so powerful.
Yeah.
I've always seen it as like a physical embodiment of surrender, adoration, and a yearning to connect with something greater.
Absolutely. It's about acknowledging that we're not the center of the universe.
Right.
There's a power greater than us, and approaching it with humility and awe can be incredibly transformative.
Speaking of something greater, Psalm 135 is a full-blown celebration of God's greatness.
It is.
It proclaims, whatever the Lord pleases, that did he in heaven and on earth. It's a real perspective shift, isn't it?
It is. It's a reminder that God is sovereign.
Right.
His power extends over all things.
Yeah.
And while we might not always understand the why behind everything that happens,
Yeah.
recognizing his authority can provide a sense of comfort amidst chaos.
That's so true. And then Psalm 136 is like this beautiful symphony of gratitude for God's enduring mercy.
I love that song.
Yeah.
So
It
beautiful.
repeatedly emphasizes, for his steadfast love endures forever. It's a call to focus on the good and
Yeah.
acknowledge the countless ways we experience his love and faithfulness.
And the act of consciously cultivating gratitude can be truly transformative.
Right.
It's about actively searching for those things we're thankful for, regardless of their size,
Okay.
and allowing that gratitude to shape our perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of dwelling on what we lack, we shift our focus to the abundance surrounding us.
There's even scientific evidence that practicing gratitude can rewire our brains to be more positive.
Isn't that interesting?
It's amazing how this ancient wisdom aligns with modern research.
It really is.
But before we, dive deeper into gratitude,
Yeah.
we need to acknowledge this shift in tone as we move into Psalm 137.
Yeah, a little bit heavier.
Yeah.
This psalm is a lament written during the Babylonian exile, a time of immense sorrow and displacement for the Israelites.
Right.
It begins with, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion."
Mm-hmm.
It's raw, honest, and doesn't shy away from the pain of loss and longing.
It reminds us that it's okay to not be okay,
Yeah.
to grieve, to express our pain. In fact, suppressing those emotions can be incredibly unhealthy.
Absolutely. What's beautiful is that God isn't afraid of our tears, our anger, or our doubts.
Yeah.
He welcomes all of us, just as we are, in all our complexity.
Okay. But before we get too deep into that,
Right.
let's shift gears again and explore Psalm 138.
Okay.
What stands out to you about this psalm?
Well, it feels like a breath of fresh air after the heaviness of the previous psalm.
Okay.
It's a psalm of thanksgiving and unwavering trust in God's plan.
Right.
It starts with this bold declaration: "I will worship toward your holy temple and praise your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness."
Even amidst suffering, there's this recognition that God is still worthy of our praise and trust.
Exactly.
And then we have that powerful affirmation in verse 8. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. It's like a vote of confidence, a reminder that God isn't finished with us yet.
Powerful stuff.
There's so much to unpack in that verse.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely come back to it.
Ooh.
But for now, let's take a moment to just breathe, reflect on what we've covered so far,
Okay.
and then we'll dive into the last two psalms of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, so we're back.
Back at it.
Ready to dive into those final two psalms,
Let's do it.
139 and 140.
Okay.
These are some of the most powerful and thought-provoking in the entire book.
I agree. Psalm 139 in particular, it's
Yeah.
a masterpiece of introspection and theological depth.
It really is.
It grapples with the very essence of our existence
Mm-hmm.
and the awe-inspiring reality of God's intimate knowledge of us.
Okay, let's jump right in.
Okay.
The imagery in the first few verses,
Yeah.
incredibly vivid.
Yeah.
You formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like God is the ultimate artist,
I love that.
meticulously crafting each of us with intention and care.
It challenges us to think about the miracle of life
Right.
in a whole new way.
Yeah.
You know, we often take our bodies for granted,
Mm.
but this psalm reminds us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
Every cell, every fiber of our being is known and loved by God.
And that knowledge isn't superficial.
No,
It's deeply personal.
it is.
Verse 2 says, you know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off.
Right,
It's both comforting and, to be honest, a little unnerving.
right. It forces us to confront the reality that we can't hide anything from God.
Yeah.
He sees our deepest desires, our hidden motivations,
Mhm.
even those thoughts we barely acknowledge ourselves.
Right.
But instead of being afraid, the psalmist embraces this knowledge
Okay.
with a sense of wonder and awe.
There's a real shift in perspective
Absolutely.
that happens when you truly grasp the concept of God's all-encompassing knowledge.
For sure.
It's humbling, but it's also incredibly freeing.
Absolutely. It challenges us to live authentically,
Yeah.
to be true to ourselves, knowing that we're already fully known and accepted by God.
Mhm.
There's no need to pretend or put on a facade.
And that leads to the famous declaration in verse 14, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Right.
It's a declaration of self-worth,
It is.
rooted in the knowledge of God's love for us.
This verse has become an anthem for so many people
I can see why.
because it speaks to that deep longing we all have to be seen, known, and loved for who we truly are.
Right.
It reminds us that our value isn't based on our accomplishments or appearance or what others think of us.
Yeah.
It's inherent, given to us by our Creator.
I think that's what makes this psalm so timeless.
I agree.
It speaks to the core of our identity as human beings, created in the image of God and loved beyond measure.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final psalm in this set, Psalm 140.
Okay.
It's a bit of a departure from the introspective tone of Psalm 139.
Okay.
It's raw, honest, and filled with a sense of urgency.
It's a cry for protection from those who seek to harm and deceive.
Yeah.
The psalmist pleads, "Deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man." This isn't some abstract theological concept.
Right.
It's a real life struggle with very real consequences.
And it's a struggle that many people face today.
For sure.
Whether it's bullying, abuse, injustice, or simply the feeling of being targeted or threatened.
Yeah.
This psalm reminds us that we're not alone in those experiences.
It's interesting because the psalmist doesn't just passively wait for God to intervene.
Right.
He actively calls out the injustice, naming the specific threats he's facing.
Yeah.
There's a sense of empowerment in that, isn't there?
Absolutely. It reminds us that we have a voice. And we have a right to use it to speak out against injustice and seek protection.
Right.
Prayer isn't just about passive resignation.
Yeah.
It's about engaging with God in the midst of our struggles and asking for his guidance and intervention.
And the psalm ends on a hopeful note,
It does.
reaffirming that the righteous will give thanks to your name, the upright will dwell in your presence.
Right.
Even in the face of adversity, there's a belief that justice will ultimately prevail.
Yeah.
And that God's presence will sustain those who seek him.
It's a powerful reminder that even though we may face darkness and danger, we're not alone.
Right.
God is with us,
Yeah.
offering comfort, protection, and the hope of a brighter future.
So as we come to the end of our deep dive into Psalms 131 through 140,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I hope they'll be encouraged by the reminder
Yeah.
that even in the midst of life's complexities and challenges, there's a God who knows them intimately, loves them unconditionally,
Right.
and is always present with them.
I love that. And I hope they'll also be inspired to cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude,
Yeah.
to practice surrender,
Mhm.
and to actively seek unity in their relationships and communities.
Absolutely. And to remember that even when they feel lost or alone,
Yeah.
they can turn to these psalms for comfort, guidance, and a renewed sense of hope.
This has been such a rich and rewarding exploration.
It has.
I want to thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
These psalms are so full of wisdom and beauty, and I'm always grateful for the opportunity to delve into their depths.
I couldn't agree more. Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
is there anything else you'd like to share about these Psalms? Or perhaps a specific verse that particularly resonates with you?
You know, going back to Psalm 138,
Okay.
and that verse, "The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me," it really encapsulates the overarching message of these 10 songs.
Okay.
It's about trusting in God's plan,
Yeah.
even when we don't fully understand it,
Right.
and embracing the journey he has set before us.
It's a beautiful reminder that we're not just drifting aimlessly through life.
Right.
We have a purpose,
We do.
and God is actively working to fulfill that purpose in and through us.
Precisely. And that knowledge can give us a sense of direction, meaning, and hope, even when we encounter obstacles along the way.
So as we conclude this deep dive,
Yeah.
we encourage you to continue reflecting on these Psalms,
Yeah.
allowing their words to speak to your heart and guide your steps.
May you find comfort, strength, and a renewed sense of purpose in their timeless wisdom.
Okay, so we've covered so much ground already.
Yeah.
Exploring these themes of surrender and unity, gratitude and lament.
It has been quite a journey.
It really has. But we can't wrap up our deep dive into Psalms 131 through 140
Yeah.
without circling back to Psalm 138
Oh, definitely.
and that powerful statement you mentioned, "The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me." What's the significance of that statement in the context of, everything we've discussed?
You know, it really is a powerful culmination of everything we've explored.
Yeah.
Think about those early Psalms we talked about.
Okay.
The image of the child resting in its mother's arms.
Right.
The yearning for a sacred space. The recognition of a power greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
This verse tucked away in Psalm 138.
Okay.
It assures us that there's a purpose woven into all of it.
It's comforting.
It is. It's a reminder that even when life feels chaotic or directionless, God has a plan.
Right.
And he's actively working it out in our lives.
That's such an encouraging thought. It really shifts our perspective,
It does.
from feeling lost or overwhelmed
Yeah.
to recognizing that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
But what does it actually look like to live with that kind of confidence and purpose?
Well, it's not about having all the answers or knowing exactly what the future holds.
Right.
It's about trusting in God's wisdom and guidance, even when we can't see the full picture.
Okay.
It's about saying yes to the opportunities that come our way,
Mm-hmm.
even if they feel daunting or uncertain.
Yeah.
It's about using our unique gifts and talents to make a difference in the world,
Okay.
however small that difference may seem.
So it's not necessarily about achieving some grand predetermined destiny.
Right.
It's more about aligning ourselves with God's purpose,
Yeah.
trusting that He'll equip us for the journey, and being open to the unexpected twists and turns along the way.
Exactly. It's about embracing the adventure of faith,
Okay.
knowing that we have a loving and faithful guide walking alongside us every step of the way.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Psalms 131 through 140.
Wow.
We've laughed, we've reflected, and hopefully we've uncovered some new insights into these timeless texts.
It's been a joy to explore these psalms with you.
It really has.
They offer so much wisdom and encouragement for navigating the complexities of life.
I couldn't agree more. As we conclude, we encourage you to continue reflecting on these psalms,
Yes.
allowing their words to resonate in your heart and mind.
May they inspire you to live with greater purpose, gratitude, and a deep abiding trust in the God who knows you, loves you, and is fulfilling his purpose in and through you.
That's beautiful. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next